The stars looked cold and distant through the bridge windows of the Kethvar ship Dominion's Eye. Captain Veltar stood with his forearms crossed behind his back, watching the empty space ahead. His purple skin gleamed under the bridge lights, and his large black eyes never missed anything that happened in his territory. "Captain," called Science Officer Quindal from her station. "We are picking up something strange ahead." Veltar turned his head toward her. Quindal had been with him for many cycles, and she never called something strange unless it truly was. Her long fingers moved across her control panel, bringing up data on the main screen. "What do you see?" Veltar asked. "A ship, sir. Unknown design. It appears to be drifting near the destroyed mining station." Veltar looked at the main screen. There, floating among the broken pieces of the asteroid mining facility, was a ship unlike any he had seen before. It was made of dark metal and looked battered. Scorch marks covered its hull and several sections seemed damaged. "How big is it?" Veltar asked. "About half our size, sir. The design is very basic. It looks like it was built by someone who just learned how to work with metal." The other crew members on the bridge started to gather around. They had been searching this area of space for new worlds to add to the Kethvar Empire. Finding a new species was always exciting, especially when that species looked weak. "Any life signs?" Veltar asked. Quindal checked her readings again. "Very few, sir. Maybe 10 or 12 beings inside. Their life signs are weak. The ship appears to be running on emergency power only." Veltar smiled, showing his sharp white teeth. This was perfect. A damaged ship from an unknown species would be easy to capture. They could study the aliens inside and learn about their technology. If they were lucky, this species might lead them to more worlds to conquer. "Move us closer," Veltar ordered. "But keep our weapons ready." The Dominion's Eye moved forward slowly. As they got closer, more details of the strange ship became clear. It had weapons on it, but they looked very primitive. The ship itself appeared to be held together with thick metal plates and what looked like welding marks. "Sir," said Weapons Officer Crixon, "their weapons are very basic. They look like they shoot solid metal pieces instead of energy beams." Veltar laughed. "Solid metal? How primitive. They probably cannot even hurt our shields." Inside the damaged ship, Captain Dae-Ho Kim sat quietly in his command chair. His dark eyes watched the alien ship approach on his screen. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, but they moved very slowly and kept their voices low. "They are scanning us again," whispered Lieutenant Hyojin Park from her position at the tactical station. Her fingers moved carefully over her controls, making sure not to make any sudden movements. "Let them," Dae-Ho said softly. "Make sure our power levels stay low. We need them to think we are helpless." Commander Tae-Sung Lee looked up from his engineering station. "All weapons are ready, Captain, but they still think we are running on emergency power only." "Good," Dae-Ho said. "Keep it that way." The human ship Iron Phoenix was not as damaged as it appeared. Most of the scorch marks were paint, and the emergency power readings were fake. Dae-Ho and his crew had been waiting for the alien ship to arrive. They had destroyed the mining station themselves and then waited, pretending to be hurt survivors. Back on the Kethvar ship, Quindal continued her scans. "Captain, I am reading their basic information now. They appear to be a bipedal species similar to us but smaller. Their technology level seems very low." "How low?" Veltar asked. "I would say Class 3 at most. They probably just learned how to travel between stars. Their ship design is very simple, and their weapons are ancient." Veltar was very pleased. A Class 3 species would be easy to defeat. The Kethvar Empire was Class 1, with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. These aliens would not even understand how the Kethvar weapons worked. "Prepare a boarding party," Veltar ordered. "We will take their ship and study them." "Sir," Quindal said, "should we try to communicate with them first?" Veltar waved one of his hands. "Why? They are too primitive to understand us. We will capture them and learn their language later." The bridge crew began preparing for the capture. They had done this many times before with other weak species. It was always the same. The primitive aliens would try to fight, fail, and then surrender. After that, the Kethavar would take their worlds and add them to the Empire. On the human ship, Tae-sung quietly checked his instruments. Captain, they are preparing boarding pods. Dae-ho nodded. How many? Looks like 12 Kethavar soldiers. In 2 pods. Hyojin smiled slightly. Only 12? That seems almost unfair. For them, Dae-ho agreed. The human crew had been watching the Kethavar Empire for months. They had studied their ships, learned their language, and understood their tactics. This first contact was not an accident. It was a carefully planned operation. Captain Veltar watched as his boarding pods launched toward the human ship. This should be easy, he told his crew. Another primitive species for the Empire. The pods moved through space toward the Iron Phoenix. Inside each pod, 6 Kethavar soldiers checked their weapons and prepared to board the alien ship. They expected the aliens to be weak and frightened. Dae-ho watched the pods approach on his screen. Remember, he told his crew, we need some of them alive for questioning. Understood, Captain, Hyojin replied. The first pod attached to the Iron Phoenix hull with a loud clang. The Kethavar soldiers inside began cutting through the human ship's hull with their energy tools. They expected no resistance. Inside the human ship, Dae-ho stood up from his chair. Well, he said calmly, I suppose it is time to introduce ourselves. The Kethavar had no idea that they were about to meet a species that had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. They thought they were capturing a weak, primitive ship. They were wrong. Very wrong. The first Kethavar boarding pod finished cutting through the Iron Phoenix hull. The soldiers inside prepared to enter what they thought was a helpless alien ship. But Captain Veltar wanted more information first. Wait, he told his boarding team through the communication system. I want a complete biological scan of these aliens before you go inside. Science Officer Quindal began the deep scan immediately. Her instruments reached through the human ship's hull and began reading everything about the beings inside. At first, she expected to find simple, weak creatures. What she found instead made her step back from her station. Captain, Quindal said, her voice shaking slightly. You need to see these readings. Veltar moved to her station and looked at the data. The biological information about the humans was appearing on her screen, and none of it made sense. Their bone structure is 3 times denser than ours, Quindal reported. Their muscles are built for extreme physical stress. Look at this, they have 2 hearts, not 1. Veltar stared at the readings. 2 hearts? That is impossible. Why would they need 2 hearts? For backup, sir. If one heart is damaged, the other one keeps working. But that is not all. Quindal's fingers moved across her controls, bringing up more data. They have extra kidneys, extra lungs, and their liver can regenerate itself if it gets hurt. Regenerate? Veltar asked. Yes, sir. They heal from injuries that would kill us. Their blood clotting system works faster than anything I have ever seen. And look at this. She pointed to another part of the screen. Their brain structure shows resistance to psychic attacks. This was very bad news. The Kethavar Empire always used psychic weapons to control other species. If these aliens could resist those weapons, they would be much harder to defeat. But the biological scans were just the beginning. As Quindal dug deeper into her readings, she found something even more disturbing. Captain, she said quietly, their stress response system is completely different from ours. What do you mean? When we face danger, our bodies prepare us to run away or hide. When they face danger, their bodies prepare them to fight. Their adrenaline system, their muscle response, everything about them is designed for combat. Veltar looked at the data more carefully. The readings showed that humans became stronger and faster when they were in danger, not weaker. Their heart rate increased to pump more blood to their muscles. Their vision became sharper. Their reaction time became faster. It is like they were made for war, Quindal whispered. While the Kethavar were discovering this disturbing information, they also began scanning the human ship's technology. What they found there was even more frightening. Sir, called Weapons Officer Cricksound from his station. The scan of their weapons systems is complete. What did you find? Veltar asked. Their weapons are not primitive, sir. They are terrifying. Crixon brought up his readings on the main screen. The data showed the human weapons in detail, and every piece of information was worse than the last. They do use solid metal projectiles, but look at the speed, Crixon explained. These projectiles move at 30% of light speed. They would go right through our shields like they were not even there. Veltar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What about their defensive systems? Their armor is made from materials that should not exist at their technology level. The metal they use is stronger than our best battle hull material, but they seem to make it easily. The technology scans continued, and each new piece of information was more disturbing than the last. The human ship had backup systems for their backup systems. Their power core produced impossible amounts of energy for its size. Their computer systems were protected against every type of electronic attack the Kethvar had ever seen. Inside the YAF, Iron Phoenix Captain Deho watched his own screens. His instruments were monitoring the Kethvar scans, and he was learning about the alien ship at the same time they were learning about his. Tae-sung, Deho said to his engineer. What are you seeing from their ship? Commander Tae-sung Lee looked at his readings. Their shields use a rotating frequency system, Captain. Very advanced, but I can break it. Their weapons are energy-based, long-range, designed for ship-to-ship combat. Weaknesses? Asked Lieutenant Hyojin Park. Many, Tae-sung replied with a small smile. Their ship is built for fighting other ships that use similar technology. They are not prepared for our weapons. Hyojin nodded. And their soldiers? The ones in the boarding pods have light armor and energy weapons, good for fighting other Kethvar but not designed for fighting humans. Back on the Kethvar ship, Science Officer Quindal made another discovery that made her hands shake. Captain, she said, I have accessed some of their computer files. What kind of files? Military records, sir. These beings, they have been fighting wars for thousands of years. Veltar moved closer to her station. All species fight wars. Not like this, sir. Quindal's voice was barely above a whisper. They have records of battles where millions of their own kind died, and they call these battles minor conflicts. She brought up more data on her screen. The human military records showed war after war, battle after battle, century after century, of constant fighting. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets, Quindal continued. And according to these records, they have used them on themselves. Veltar stared at the data. The humans had fought wars against other humans that were bigger and more destructive than any war the Kethvar Empire had ever fought against anyone. Sir, Quindal said, I do not think these are primitive aliens. What are they then? I think they are predators, sir. Apex predators. The boarding pods were still attached to the human ship, but now Captain Veltar was not sure he wanted to send his soldiers inside. Everything they had learned about the humans suggested that boarding their ship would be very dangerous, but it was too late to change his mind. His soldiers were already cutting through the final layer of the human hull. Inside the Iron Phoenix, Deho stood up from his command chair and walked toward the area where the Kethvar were about to enter his ship. Remember, he told his crew, we need to question them about their empire. Try not to hurt them too badly. Understood, Captain, Hyojin replied. The first Kethvar soldier stepped through the hole they had cut in the hull. He expected to find frightened, primitive aliens hiding in the dark. Instead, he found Captain Deho Kim waiting for him with a calm smile on his face. Welcome aboard, Deho said in perfect Kethvar language. We have been expecting you. The first Kethvar soldier froze when he heard Captain Deho speak perfect Kethvar language. How could this primitive alien know their words? Before the soldier could react, he felt something press against his neck, and everything went dark. On the bridge of the Dominion's Eye, Captain Veltar watched his soldiers' life signs disappear one by one. Sir, Weapons Officer Crixon said with panic in his voice, we are losing contact with the boarding teams. What is happening? Veltar demanded. I do not know, sir. Their signals just stopped. Science Officer Quindal was still working at her station, trying to learn more about the humans through her scans. She had accessed their computer database and was reading through their historical files. What she found there made her wish she had never started looking. "Captain," she called out, "I think I know why we lost contact with our soldiers. Tell me." "I have been reading their military history files. Sir, these beings have been fighting wars for over 10,000 years without stopping." Veltar turned to look at her. 10,000 years? That is impossible?" "No, sir, it is not impossible. It is terrifying." Quindal's voice shook as she read from her screen. "They have records of something called World War II, where 50 million of them died in 6 years. 50 million? Veltar could not believe it. "In 6 years?" "Yes, sir. And they call it World War II because they had an even bigger war before that one. And another one after it. They never stopped fighting." Quindal continued reading through the human database. Each file she opened showed her something worse than the last. The humans had fought with swords, then guns, then explosives, then nuclear weapons, then energy weapons, then things she could not even understand. "Sir, they have a weapon called a nuclear bomb. One bomb can destroy an entire city and kill millions of people." "How many of these bombs do they have?" Veltar asked. "According to their records, they built over 70,000 of them, and then they built even bigger ones." The bridge crew gathered around Quindal's station as she continued to read from the human files. Each new piece of information was more frightening than the last. "They fought a war that lasted 100 years, she read. "They fought another war that covered their entire planet. They fought wars in space, on planets under oceans, and inside asteroids." "What did they fight about?" asked Crixon. Quindal checked the files again. "Everything. Land, water, resources, religion, politics, and sometimes just because they did, not like each other. But the worst discovery was yet to come." Quindal found the personal files of the human crew aboard the Iron Phoenix. "Captain," she said quietly, "I found information about the humans on that ship." "What about them?" "Their captain, the one called Daeho Kim, has fought in 12 major space battles. According to his record, he once destroyed 6 enemy ships by himself after his own ship was damaged." Veltar felt his blood turn cold. "What about the others?" "The female called Hyojin Park is listed as a tactical expert. She has won every battle simulation their military has ever given her. She designs new battle strategies for fun. And the engineer? Tae-Sung Lee can build weapons from spare parts. He once turned a damaged mining ship into a warship in 3 days." The more Quindal read, the more she understood that the humans were not victims. They were hunters. And the Kethvar had walked right into their trap. "Sir," she said, "I do not think they were damaged in a battle. I think they destroyed that mining station themselves." "Why would they do that?" "As bait, to make us come to them." On the human ship, Captain Daeho walked through the corridors where 12 Kethvar soldiers lay unconscious. His crew had captured all of them without killing anyone. It had been almost too easy. "Tae-Sung," Daeho said into his communication device. "How are our systems?" "All weapons are online, Captain," came the reply. "I have also been monitoring their scans of our database." "What did you let them see?" "Just the basic history files. Nothing classified, but I think it was enough." Lieutenant Hyojin Park joined Daeho in the corridor. She was carrying one of the Kethvar energy weapons and studying it. "Interesting design," she said, "but not very effective against our armor." "What do you think of their soldiers?" Daeho asked. "They are trained for fighting other Kethvar, long-range combat, energy weapons, electronic warfare. They are not ready for close combat with humans." Daeho nodded. The Kethvar Empire was advanced in many ways, but they had never fought against a species like humans. Humans had learned to fight against other humans, and humans were the most dangerous opponents in the galaxy. Back on the Kethvar ship, Science Officer Quindal made another discovery that made her step away from her station. "Captain," she said, "I found something else in their database." "What now?" "They have detailed information about our empire. Veltar spun around to face her. What kind of information? Everything. Our ship designs, our weapon systems, our military tactics, the location of our home worlds. They know more about us than we know about them. How is that possible? I think they have been watching us for a long time, sir. This first contact was not an accident. They planned it. The terrible truth was becoming clear. The humans had not stumbled into Kethavar territory by accident. They had come here on purpose, knowing exactly who they would find and how to deal with them. Quindal found one more file that made her understand just how much trouble they were in. Sir, she said, according to their records, the ship we are facing is not a warship. What is it? It is a survey vessel, a science ship. The humans we captured are not soldiers. Veltar felt his legs become weak. If they are not soldiers, then what are they? Scientists and explorers who happen to be armed like a military vessel. The implications hit Veltar like a physical blow. If this was what human scientists could do, what would their actual military be like? Sir, Quindal continued, there is one more thing. According to their database, this ship is not alone. What do you mean? They have an entire fleet nearby. And sir, those are warships. As if summoned by her words, alarms began to sound all over the bridge. Sensors Officer Tikval called out from his station. Captain, we have multiple contacts. Approaching. Large ships moving fast. On his screen, Veltar could see them. A dozen human warships were coming toward them, and they were much bigger than the Iron Phoenix. Inside the survey vessel, Captain Deho received a communication from the lead warship. Deho, came a voice. This is Admiral Borayun. Do you need assistance? No, Admiral, Deho replied calmly. We have everything under control, but we do have some guests who might want to return home with an important message. What message is that? Deho smiled as he looked toward the Kethavar ship. That the galaxy just became a much more dangerous place. Captain Veltar stared at his sensors as 12 human warships approached his position. Each ship was twice the size of his own vessel, and their weapon signatures were unlike anything in the Kethavar database. How did they find us so quickly? He asked. Science Officer Quindal checked her instruments with shaking hands. Sir, I do not think they found us. I think they were already here waiting. Before Veltar could respond, his communication system activated. The voice that came through spoke perfect Kethavar language, but the accent was clearly human. Captain Veltar of the Kethavar Empire, the voice said calmly. This is Captain Deho Kim of the Human Federation vessel, Iron Phoenix. Thank you for scanning our ship so thoroughly. The information exchange has been very helpful. Information exchange? Veltar repeated in confusion. Yes. While your science officer was reading our database, our computers were reading yours. We now know everything about your ship, your weapons, your shields, and your empire. The terrible truth hit Veltar like a cold wave. Every scan they had performed on the human ship had been sending information back to the humans. They had been studying the Kethavar, while the Kethavar thought they were studying them. Impossible, Veltar whispered. Captain Deho's voice continued, still calm and polite. Your boarding pods are very advanced, but they have a weakness in their magnetic lock system. Your soldiers are well trained, but they rely too much on their energy weapons. Your ship's shields are impressive, but they cannot stop kinetic weapons moving at high speed. On the human ship, Commander Tae-Sung Lee was working at his engineering station. The fake damage to their hull was falling away, revealing the true armor underneath. The emergency power readings were changing to show their real energy output, which was 3 times what the Kethavar ship could produce. Captain, Tae-Sung reported, all systems are at full power. Weapons are locked onto their ship. Good, Deho replied. But remember, we need them alive to send our message. Lieutenant Hyojin Park studied the tactical information they had, gathered from the Kethavar scans. Captain, I have identified 17 critical systems on their ship. I can disable all of them without destroying the vessel. Do it, Deho ordered. The Iron Phoenix began to transform. What had appeared to be a damaged survey vessel revealed its true nature. Hidden weapon ports opened along its hull, Additional armor plating slid into position. The ship's energy signature changed from weak and helpless to powerful and dangerous. On the Kethvar bridge, alarms began sounding everywhere. Captain, Weapons Officer Crixen called out in panic. They are targeting our weapon systems, our engines, our life, support, our communications, everything at once. Return fire, Veltar ordered. Crixen pressed his firing controls, but nothing happened. Sir, our weapons are not responding. What do you mean? I mean they are not working, sir. Something is blocking our targeting systems. The first human projectile hit the Kethvar ship's main weapon array. It was a solid metal rod moving at incredible speed, and it tore through the alien ship's hull like paper. The Kethvar shields, which were designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing to slow it down. More projectiles followed. Each one hit exactly where Lieutenant Hyojin had aimed it. The Kethvar ship's weapons went offline, then their engines, then their communication array. Sir, reported Sensors Officer Tikval, we are completely disabled. We cannot fight, we cannot run, and we cannot call for help. But the humans were not finished. Captain Deho opened communication with the Kethvar ship again. Captain Veltar, you and your crew have two choices. You can surrender peacefully, or you can wait while we capture your ship by force. Either way, you will be coming with us. Veltar looked around his bridge. Half of his systems were destroyed, and the other half were failing. His soldiers were captured. His ship was helpless, and 12 human warships surrounded him. What do you want? He asked. Information, Deho replied. About your empire, your military, your planets. In exchange, we will let some of you go home with a message. What message? That the Human Federation claims this entire sector of space. Any Kethvar ships found here after today will be destroyed. Veltar could not believe what he was hearing. You cannot claim Kethvar territory. We are not claiming Kethvar territory, Deho corrected him. We are claiming empty space that happens to be near your territory. The difference is important, Andori. The human ship Tae-Sung was studying the Kethvar vessel through his instruments. Captain, their ship is very advanced, but it has some interesting design flaws, such as their entire ship is controlled by one central computer. If we can access that computer, we can control their whole ship. Can you do that? Already working on it, Tae-Sung replied with a smile. Their computer security is good against other Kethvar, but not against human systems. Minutes later, Tae-Sung had complete control of the Kethvar ship. He could turn their lights on and off, open and close their doors, and even control their life support systems. Captain Veltar, Deho said over the communication system, please look at your bridge lighting. The lights on the Kethvar bridge began flashing in a pattern. 3 short flashes, 3 long flashes, 3 short flashes. That is an ancient human signal, Deho explained. It means, help me. We thought you might find it educational. The message was clear. The humans could control every system on the Kethvar ship whenever they wanted to. Now, Deho continued, we would like you to send a message to your empire. Tell them that the humans are not interested in war, but we are very good at it. If they want to avoid problems, they should stay in their own territory and leave this sector of space alone. And if we refuse? Veltar asked. Then Admiral Yoon's battle fleet will visit your homeworld and deliver the message personally. I do not think your people would enjoy that experience. Through his bridge windows, Veltar could see the human warships surrounding him. Each one was heavily armed and obviously built for war. Their hulls were scarred from previous battles, and their weapons were pointed directly at his ship. How do we know you will let us go? Veltar asked. Because we keep our promises, Deho replied. Unlike your empire, we do not conquer other species unless they attack us first. We prefer to trade and explore, but if someone threatens us, we respond with overwhelming force. The human captain's voice remained calm and polite throughout. The entire conversation, as if he was discussing the weather instead of the destruction of the Kethvar ship. Captain, Quindel said quietly to Veltar, I recommend we accept their terms. Why? Because the alternative is that we all die here, and our empire never learns about the humans until it is too late. Veltar knew she was right. The humans had completely outfought, outthought, and outmaneuvered them. The Kethvar Empire needed to know about this new threat immediately. "We accept your terms," Veltar said finally. "Excellent," Deho replied. "Prepare 3 of your escape pods. You and 2 of your crew will return to your empire with our message. The rest of your people will remain with us for a while as guests. And our ship will become property of the Human Federation. We are always interested in studying new technology." As the Kethvar prepared their escape pods, Veltar realized that everything they thought they knew about First Contact was wrong. They were not the apex predators of the galaxy. That title belonged to the humans. 3 Kethvar escape pods raced through space toward the nearest Empire outpost. Inside the lead pod, Captain Veltar sat in silence, staring at the report he had to deliver. Science Officer Quindal was with him, along with Communications Officer Quindal. The rest of his crew remained prisoners on human ships. "Sir," Quindal said quietly, "how do we explain this to High Command?" Veltar did not answer immediately. How could he explain that the Kethvar Empire, which had conquered dozens of star systems, had been completely defeated by a single human survey ship? "We tell them the truth," he said finally, "no matter how impossible it sounds." Behind them, the human fleet was already gone. The 12 warships had jumped to hyperspace, taking the captured Kethvar vessel with them. Only empty space remained where the battle had taken place. 2 days later, the escape pods arrived at Kethvar Outpost 7. The station commander, General Mortak, was confused by their emergency arrival. "Captain Veltar," the general said, as they met in his office, "your ship was not expected back for another week. Where is the Dominion's Eye?" "Captured, sir, by a previously unknown species called humans." General Mortak's forearms crossed in front of his chest. "Captured? By primitives?" "No, sir, not primitives. The humans are far more dangerous than any species we have encountered." Veltar spent the next hour explaining what had happened. "General," Mortak listened in growing disbelief as the captain described the human trap, their advanced technology, and their military capabilities. "You are telling me," the general said slowly, "that 1 human ship defeated your vessel without taking any damage?" "Yes, sir, and they had 11 more ships standing by in case they needed help." "Impossible." Science Officer Quindal stepped forward with a data pad. "Sir, I have biological and technological scans of the human ship. The readings speak for themselves." "General," Mortak looked at the data and his expression changed from disbelief to concern to outright fear. "These readings show that humans are built for warfare," he said. "Yes, sir, and their history shows they have been fighting wars for thousands of years." General Mortak was a veteran of many battles, but what he saw in the human data frightened him more than any enemy he had ever faced. "Contact the High Command immediately," he ordered. "This information must reach the Empire Council." The message traveled through Kethvar space faster than any ship could fly. Within hours, every military commander in the Empire had received the report about the humans. The reaction was the same everywhere: disbelief, followed by fear. On the Isar, Kethvar homeworld, the Empire Council gathered in emergency session. The 12 most powerful leaders of the Empire sat around a circular table, studying the data that Captain Veltar had brought back. "This cannot be accurate," said Council Leader Zixara. "No species could be this dangerous." "The scans do not lie," replied Military Commander Vokaran. "These humans are everything Captain Veltar claims they are." The Council spent hours reviewing the information. The human biological data showed a species evolved for combat. Their technology was advanced, but built for warfare rather than exploration. Their history was an endless series of increasingly deadly conflicts. "What concerns me most," said Intelligence Director Carvin, "is that this was not even a warship." "What do you mean?" asked Zixara. "According to the data, the vessel that defeated Captain Veltar was a survey ship, a science vessel. If this is what their explorers can do, what are their actual military ships capable of?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. If the humans had 12 warships protecting one survey vessel, how many ships did they have in total? How large was their territory? How long had they been watching the HFY Empire? There is something else, Carvin continued. The humans knew our language perfectly. They had detailed information about our ships, our weapons, and our tactics. This suggests they have been studying us for some time. How long? Zixara asked. Unknown, but probably months or even years. The implications were terrifying. The humans had been watching the HFY Empire, learning about them, preparing for contact, while the HFY had no idea they even existed. What are their demands? Military Commander Vokran asked. According to Captain Veltar, they want us to stay out of the sector where contact was made. They claim that area as their territory now. And if we refuse? They will use military force to remove us. The council. Members looked at each other in silence. The HFY Empire had never backed down from a challenge, but they had also never faced an enemy like the humans. What do we know about their military strength? Zixara asked. Intelligence Director Carvin activated a holographic display showing the human star charts that had been copied during the scan. According to their navigation data, the Human Federation controls over 300 star systems. Their population appears to be in the billions. As for their military, he paused and looked around the table. Every single human ship in their database has military-grade weapons, including civilian vessels. Even civilian ships are armed? Vokran asked in disbelief. Yes, sir. Apparently they use them for asteroid mining and space construction, but the weapon specifications are identical to our military vessels. Council leader Zixara stood up and walked to the large window that showed the HFY home world below. Billions of her people lived on that planet, thinking they were safe under the protection of the Empire's military. What do you recommend? She asked. Military Commander Vokran was quiet for a long moment before answering. We avoid contact with the humans until we know more about them. You mean we retreat? I mean we survive. The data shows that humans become more dangerous when they are threatened. If we attack them, they will respond with overwhelming force. The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The HFY Empire, for the first time in its history, would back down from a challenge. Send a message to all military commanders. Zixara ordered finally. No HFY ships are to enter human space. Any contact with human vessels should be avoided if possible. And if contact cannot be avoided? Vokran asked. Surrender immediately and hope they are merciful. The order went out across the Empire within hours. But Intelligence Director Carvin had one more task to complete. He activated the Empire's long-range communication system and began broadcasting on all frequencies that other species might be using. His message was simple but urgent. Warning to all species. Avoid contact with beings calling themselves humans. They appear peaceful, but are extremely dangerous. They have claimed territory in Sector 7 Alpha. Do not enter that area. Do not scan their ships. Do not attempt communication. This message is sent in the interest of galactic peace. Meanwhile, in human space, Captain Daeho Kim sat in his quarters aboard the Iron Phoenix, writing his own report about the first contact with the HFY Empire. Contact successful, he wrote. The HFY Empire has been neutralized as a potential threat through demonstration of superior technology and military capability. They have agreed to avoid human space and will warn other species to do the same. He paused in his writing and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other alien species were probably receiving the HFY warning. Some would heed it and stay away from human space. Others would be curious and come looking for trouble. Daeho smiled and continued writing his report. Recommend increased patrol activity in border sectors. Additional first contact situations are likely within the next few months. The galaxy had just learned that humans existed. For some species, this would be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. For others, it would be the last mistake they ever made. But for now, there was peace. The kind of peace that comes when everyone understands exactly who the most dangerous predator in the galaxy really is.